So you've been asked to write a formal academic text. Maybe you've been asked to write a 5-paragraph essay. Today I want to spend a few minutes talking about a few steps that you might follow in narrowing down your topic. Hello, my name is Benjamin Stewart at benjaminlstewart.net, making teaching and learning more transparent. Before we get into today's topic, if you have any thoughts, insights, or experiences on today's topic, feel free to reach out to me at my Twitter handle at BNLEEZ. So today I want to get into the topic of narrowing down a researchable topic. One of the most challenging things that you can do when you're beginning an essay, especially if you're thinking about writing a 5-paragraph essay, is how to go about narrowing down a topic. Much of what we talk about here today will also apply to longer text as well, as, again, many of the principles and steps that we follow here today will certainly apply to those cases where we need to really find not only a topic that is narrow in scope, but also one that's researchable. So much of what we talk about here today is coming from Booth, Collum, and Williams from their book, The Craft of Research. This is a very good book that really goes into a lot of detail about how to go about narrowing down a topic. We're going to touch on a few key aspects, and the one thing that we're going to begin thinking about is developing a problem statement. One of the first things to do when you're starting to narrowing down a topic is to think about a particular problem that maybe you faced either as a learner and or as a teacher. Maybe some of you are teaching now and you have witnessed some challenges, whether it's related to teaching, whether it's related to learning. Those are some, I think, helpful experiences to draw on when you're first thinking about a problem that you want to really investigate. Think of your essay either as a problem solution type of essay, where maybe you state the problem in the introduction and the rest of the essay relates to the solution, or maybe the entire essay addresses the problem. So whenever you're writing an essay for a class, you might want to clarify that aspect with the instructor to make sure that you're writing the type of essay that you need to consider. So the first thing we want to think about is developing a problem statement. And the way that we go about structuring a problem statement can be really viewed in two different ways. The first is to think of it as having 3 sections. First, the topic. Second, an indirect question. And third, significance. So, for example, let's say that we have a sentence that begins, I am studying something. I wish to learn more about, now we state the subject. So maybe we think of teacher feedback as an overall topic. Now, that one term by itself isn't enough to really go into or consider it a researchable topic. It's just an idea, a topic that we want to dig deeper or go into more specifically if we're really considering this topic for an academic essay. But it's usually a good place to start is to think more generally of an overall topic to kind of get the process started. So we could start by saying, I am studying teacher feedback because, we're going to continue our prompt with the connector because, or the subordinating conjunction, because I want to find out. This is also part of the prompt. So because I want to find out, and then we need a key question word. Now the second part, after the connector because, where we start, I want to find out, now we're beginning an indirect question. I want to find out when something happens. I want to find out how something happens. I want to find out why something happens. Okay, so we want to find one key question word that is going to establish the central question, the indirect question that's going to relate to our overall essay. So in this example, I might continue the prompt. I am studying teacher feedback because I want to find out when giving feedback allows students to feel more confident when speaking L2 with their peers. Again, this is the indirect question beginning with, I want to find out when giving feedback allows students to feel more confident when speaking L2 with their peers. Now, notice a couple of things here. We're still addressing the topic of teacher feedback. But now that we have introduced an indirect question after the subordinating conjunction because, we are taking that general topic and now digging deep. We're going to dig deeper into that aspect, that topic, trying to find the right combination of keywords that will achieve that purpose, the purpose of narrowing down our scope. The indirect question is the one central question that's going to relate to our essay. So it needs to be researchable. It needs to be specific enough and appropriate enough for the kind of essay that we're writing. If we're thinking in terms of a 5-paragraph essay, right, we need perhaps a few additional key words that's going to help us limit the scope. Now, in this example, you'll notice, again, the indirect question is, I want to find out when giving feedback, that still relates to the topic, allows students to feel more confident. So another key term here is confident or confidence. So this is one additional keyword that's going to help us narrow down our scope. Notice that I am also focusing on speaking L2, speaking the target language, when speaking L2 with their peers. So now we're even limiting the scope even more by limiting the type of speaking with those kinds of speaking activities that relate to students speaking with each other. Maybe it's in pairs, maybe it's in small groups. But notice here my attempt is to limit the scope. It's still about teacher feedback, but we're focusing primarily on building confidence or motivating students to feel better about speaking the L2. Notice we're not going to focus on writing. We probably aren't going to be focusing too much on grammar or vocabulary, right, or pronunciation as a central theme. It's really about the social learning, the social aspects of collaboration and cooperation. Now, certainly grammar might come up, but it's not a central theme throughout the whole essay. Okay, so again, the topic of teacher feedback now has been limited to basically peer assessment, students focusing on helping each other with their speaking skill and building confidence. Now, once we have introduced the indirect question that's more specific, that relates to our overall topic, in this case, teacher feedback, now we want to introduce the third component of the problem, which is the significance. This is the why. This is the big picture. Why even bother writing an essay? Besides being perhaps an assignment in a course, it should have a larger significance. It should have a more authentic significance. Imagine who would benefit the most having read your essay. Who would you be handing this essay out to in the real world? And so you want to think about a target audience. You want to think about the purpose of or the objective of writing this essay when you're thinking about the significance. We want to continue our prompt by beginning with in order to. In order to. Now, in this example, we'll extend the idea by stating the following. In order to answer the bigger question of how teacher intervention can either promote or discourage students' oral production in class. So it's very much, again, focused on what the teacher can do to promote peer or peer assessment, essentially. All right, so this is our problem statement. We're thinking of it in terms of beginning with the topic, followed by an indirect question, followed by significance. Again, in the entire problem statement reads as follows. I'm studying teacher feedback because I want to find out when giving feedback allows students to feel more confident when speaking L2 with their peers, in order to answer the bigger question of how teacher intervention can either promote or discourage students' oral production in class. Now, a lot has to go into developing this statement. And when I work with students in developing and working and trying to come up with a good problem statement, it will always involve a lot of reading of articles, perhaps listing or having a list of key terms, keywords that are coming from the articles. Most of the articles need to be from primary researched articles or from peer-reviewed journal articles, those being the best source of information, typically. And so we want to, as we are reading, develop our problem statement, trying to come up with the right combination of key terms. Most of my conversations with students really relates to making sure we have enough of the key terms in order for them to narrow the scope. Now, if you're developing your own problem statement, you can go too far by perhaps providing too many key words and it being too specific. That's also something that we want to avoid. We want to try to find that right mix where it's specific enough, but not too specific. Again, the indirect question is where that happens, right? The topic should be general. The indirect question should be more specific, should be a subset of the topic. Now, another way to look at the problem statement is to think of it as having, again, three parts. The first being the topic, which is similar as to what we discussed before. But after the topic, we can think of, instead of the indirect question, we can think of it as a condition. And instead of concluding with a significance, we can think of it as being a cost or consequence. So again, we can take the same example. I'm studying teacher feedback. That's our topic, because I want to find out when giving feedback allows students to feel more confident when speaking out with their peers. That's the condition. In order to answer the bigger question of how teacher intervention can either promote or discourage students' oral production in class, that's the cost or the consequence. So if that helps to think of the indirect question and the consequence, if it helps to think of it instead in terms of a condition and a consequence, or a condition and a cost, certainly then apply those terms. Okay, but essentially what we're trying to do here with the problem statement is have a reason, right? Stating a reason for developing our problem statement, and also in the indirect question, go through this process of, again, trying to narrow down our scope. Now, once you have created the problem statement, copy and paste, basically word for word, extract the indirect question. Okay, we'll think of the first example in terms of the subordinating clause, the because I want to find out when clause. We want to extract, copy and paste that, and list it separately so we can see it in isolation. This is our indirect question, and just below it, simply convert the indirect question to a direct question. So in this example, we would convert the indirect question, I want to find out when giving feedback allows students, etc. If we want to convert that to a direct question, it might sound something like the following. When should teachers give feedback to students in a way that makes them feel confident when speaking L2 with their peers? Okay, so in this case, I inserted a few words, but essentially I'm trying to capture exactly the same idea, but simply convert it from an indirect question to a direct question. Now, this is a good exercise because it reminds you as the writer that your essay is simply to address one central question. And in order to obtain that question, we go through the process of developing a problem statement. Once we have our indirect question and our direct question, and we feel confident that we have included enough keywords to make the topic as specific as it needs to be, right, for the type of essay that we're writing, then we think about our thesis statement. Remember that a thesis statement simply answers your central question. In this case, our direct question. Just below it, we need to now present our one-sentence answer, our thesis statement. Now, when you're considering your thesis statement, I would take a look at the podcast Writing Workshop, Thesis Statement, and Skeleton Outline that was posted on March 29th, 2022. And that's going to give you some suggestions there. I go into greater detail about how to go about answering a thesis statement and then how to take the next step into developing a skeleton outline. Today's topic primarily is helping us get to a thesis statement, thinking of the problem statement, thinking very specifically of an indirect question and direct question that's specific enough, that's appropriate for the type of essay we need to develop. We might consider listing out key terms as we are reading our topics and we're getting the right combination of key terms based on the context of our essay. And then we are concluding our problem statement with the significance. Again, the significance simply is stating the why, the purpose, the objective of writing our 5-paragraph essay. My name is Benjamin Stewart at benjaminlstewart.net, making teaching and learning more transparent. Thanks for listening.